Live on Twitch, technically live. All right, let's make sure we're technically live. Party chat window over here. Party chat window over here. Ba 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 bum. Party chat, ready to party. All right. We're ready to party. We're ready. We hope you brought lots of spaghetti. Spaghetti. Here we go. This is the place where fun never ends. How do you... Garfield and Friends lyrics. There's a line in there I'm forgetting about. Okay, so it starts with "we're." This is not the song I want. Yeah, we're ready to party. Come on in, come to the place where fun never ends. Come on in, it's time to party with Garfield and Friends. Dancing, fiesta, romancing, siesta, samba, let's lanza. Ay caramba, let's lanza. What does that mean? Doesn't mean anything in English, although it does sound like launch in Spanish. Disguises, surprises, and pies of all sizes. Man, I forgot how much I like that show. That was a damn good show. Okay, hello everybody. Before we get started here, man, because this is nostalgia tour I was not expected to go on today. I know, right? That part about, the dancing, fiesta, romancing, siesta. What was the clip for when they said romancing? I'm guessing it's... I'm guessing it is supposed to be a lasagna reference, but it's probably a clip of like Garfield and Odie dancing. Garfield and Friends intro. Let me see. Oh. Is this going to nuke us? I'm going to try and just play this. Let's see.
Garfield and Friends.
Friends are there
to help you get started, to give you a push on your way.
Yeah, that's not themes like second version? We're second version.
Ready to party!
We're ready to party, we're ready.
I hope you bring lots of spaghetti.
I'm scared. Come on in, come to the place where fun never ends. Come on in, it's time to party with Garfield and Friends.
Show the romancing.
Fiesta!
Romancing.
Siesta!
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the clip they show when they say romancing is so much more disappointing than I was expecting. It's just a shot of Garfield go like this. It's just him like dancing on a table. There's no romancing there at all that I know of, but apparently I'm not a romantic person. Okay, hello Haley, welcome.
Hi.
The show hasn't even begun yet, but just a reminder for everybody, you can throw your hand in the air if you want to ask any question under the sun. Beaten O'Brien will show you how it's done. Throw your hand in the air there, Beaten O'Brien. I'm not going to call on you, I swear. Or if you want to join the specific conversation we're having, you can flick your hand on and off, just like Groffles is doing right about now. Oh, or Beaten O'Brien, perfect. But genuinely, we're at a slightly different time, so if this works for you for calling in at this time, I'd love to hear some new voices. So please don't be shy, jump in. You can podcast with us about whatever you want. You ready to get rolling here, Haley?
Let's go. More Garfield talk? Is that
Yeah, that's right. Do you know that song?
I didn't watch that show.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with the Garfield and Friends lore.
There's a lot to get into. Okay, here we go. It also feels like the most obnoxious thing possible, Haley, if it's just like you sitting back and like listening to people listen to cartoon intros of their youth that they're nostalgic for when you have no frame of reference for. It feels like it's unbearable. So you're a saint. Okay, here we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of Party Chat, our bonus podcast for everybody in the MinMax community. This is where we take you behind the scenes of MinMax. We let you know exactly what's going on, exactly what's coming up, exactly what we're worried about, exactly what we're thinking about, our past, present, future, thoughts, questions, concerns, things we're still chewing on in our lives, trying to understand for how we can improve things at MinMax, how we can make this whole outlet operation better. I'm Ben Hansen. Thank you all for being here on this holiest of holy episodes, joined by Haley McLean, Community Manager.
Hello. I'm worried about how I'm gonna play all these games that come out every week and they're all good.
Yeah. Do
How
you
do I do
think
that?
it's tricky? Haley, this seems like the right show for it. Um, Look, I have a code for Spider-Man. I have Spider-Man 2 installed on my PS5. I've had it there for weeks, Haley. I have not booted it up once. And
Isn't that crazy?
it is, yes. Yes, indeed it is. But I was traveling this last weekend. There's a lot of other fun life stuff going on, and so I just have not had time, and it's stressing me out more than you could possibly imagine. But in my mind, I'm like, wow, sometime coming up, I'll be able just to sit back and have like a full day of nothing but Spider-Man. But as of right now, that has not happened yet. But we're going to be talking about that game in a future episode of the Min-Max Show. But what's on your pile, Haley?
Oh my god, so much in my pile. I'm
Yeah.
loving Sea of Stars. It's so good. I'm
yeah.
still playing Dave the Diver. I really like that game. I started Control, but I'm gonna start it again, and I was thinking about streaming it on the Min-Max channel later.
Yeah.
In preparation for Alan Wake 2, because I know there's Alan Wake DLC in that. I want to play that because I want to know everything about Alan Wake first, and but that's coming out so soon. I'm gonna want to play Mario Wonder. And then just a bunch of other little smaller things, like some stuff that, like, some codes you gave me that I can't talk about yet, like playing some of those. And there's just so many good games, which is such a dumb complaint, but
It is. It is truly the worst. And that's why we don't do it on the main show where everyone can turn against us and weaponize our words against us. But on Party Chat, like, I'm totally with you. I hate the idea of people complaining about having a job in games media
I
and
feel
all this
stupid.
stuff.
Yeah,
It's
it's such a lovely
embarrassing.
thing to have. What a great problem.
I know, but people genuinely treat it like it's terrible to have to cover games in a month where there's a bunch of good games. Hello, Starkiller.
Hey, this is actually kind of what I was wanted to talk about today.
Sure.
So.
Yeah,
cool.
what's up?
Yeah, I'm especially glad Haley's here because I was curious right before we hit this huge, big next group of games. What do you think the min-max game of the year is currently?
Oh.
And what do you think like the VGA game of the year could be currently before this next shovel full of games?
So it
Shovelful.
has to be out right now, you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
I feel like this is the big debate, right? Because it's the most game of the year ever. There's so
Yeah.
many contenders. It's in recent memory. I can't think of another year where there's been so many that I'm like fair for that to be game of the year.
Yeah, 2020 was kind of a tough one with like Last of Us Part 2 and Final Fantasy VII Remake. Yakuza Like a Dragon, like that's the closest. 2017 was pretty close. But so what do you think is Min-Max's game of the year at the moment, Haley?
Min-maxes? I don't know. That's
Come
what's gonna make
on.
the 210 so fun because I don't. Well, we got Sarah and I are like Baldur's Gate fiends, and I think slowly more and more people are coming over to the Baldur's Gate side. Tears of the Kingdom is such a
You were gonna say
easy
easy.
pick.
You're gonna say easy, yeah.
It's such an easy pick because it's Tears of the Kingdom, and I was waiting 5 years for that game, and yet somehow Baldur's Gate still beat it for me. I don't know how it did that, but it's still an easy pick because it was such a good, solid, fun game. But
Yeah.
is Spider-Man gonna be more fun than that? Is Alan Wake 2 gonna be this weird, like, amazing masterpiece that we didn't see coming? I don't know. It's just like so exciting.
I'm confident saying this because I haven't started either Alan Wake or Spider-Man 2, but I think it's gonna be Zelda versus Baldur's Gate for the discussion. And
I think so, yeah.
And a couple things. There's a lot that we need to unpack on the show. First of all, on the podcast this week for the Min-Max Show, the main podcast, the plan is, unless some huge news breaks, the plan is we're all going to be revisiting Baldur's Gate 3. And we're going to have a big group just to talk a little bit more about Baldur's Gate, kind of the revisiting conversations we want to get more in the habit of here at Min-Max. And so that's going on. And then in addition to that, I feel like, and we'll talk about it on the main show, I feel like there's this snowball going downhill of the take that I'm anti-Baldur's Gate 3 just because, it didn't click for me, the little tiny morsel that I played so far. But I respect the hell out of it. And so just to set this record straight right now, before the main podcast and before the 210s,
Party
Haley.
chat exclusive.
Yeah, Project exclusive. I would be absolutely delighted if Baldur's Gate 3 was our game of the year. I think that would be fun. I think it deserves it. Clearly an incredible game. That all being said, I think we're not giving enough credit to how much enthusiasm there is for Zelda amongst us as a group. Because Haley, you're right. You and Sarah are red hot on Baldur's Gate, and that's awesome. But like when the rest of us are that, maybe not red hot, bright orange hot on Zelda, I think it's going to be tough. But I also, here's the secret is Sarah is very opinionated. And so like if her game of the year is not our game of the year, it might be a recipe for it seeming like this great slight, where it's like, I just want to get out there. I would love for Baldur's Gate 3 and the people that love it to have them argue its way to the top is what I'm trying to say.
I was curious about where this "you hate Baldur's Gate"
Have you seen that too?
came from. Oh, totally. Because like in our spoiler videos, there's always comments. It's like, finally, Sarah's vindicated. She has arisen from the ashes of her opinion
Right.
is the correct. And there must be some clip somewhere where like, a year ago, Sarah was like, oh, this game's awesome. And you're like, that looks weird. Anyways, let's talk about that. And it was like the most minor comment.
Yeah, please
But
find that, everybody, if you can find it. I don't think it exists. I've been rooting for this game from afar, and even after playing it, I'm still rooting for it. But yeah, I think it's just because it does feel like the cool, if I may, Haley, put this on you, the cool smart person underdog pick for game of the year. So therefore, it has to topple something,
Wow.
and I guess I represent all of the Zelda fans, even though it's not a franchise I'm like very big on.
Zelda needs support also.
Well, yeah, it's also that thing. Oh, hang on. Everyone's saying it's Sarah. She's spreading these lies. My God, no. But I think there is a little bit of that. Like, we'll get it to the top. We'll bring down the man. We'll crush those Zelda fans. So we'll see how it goes.
How do you think Kyle would feel about Baldur's Gate? Because I know he's not into it.
Well,
Or he said he's
Starkiller,
not into
yeah,
it.
we should ask you. How much should you take into account it's probably going to be half of us that have started Baldur's Gate 3 and said, nah, I don't really like it. It's not really for me, but I respect it. Like, how much is that sandbag outlets argument,
Yeah, and that's why I'm really looking forward to it. And Haley, that's why I said I'm glad you're here, because I'm in the exact same boat as you. Where if you had told me at the beginning of the year that I would have liked Baldur's Gate more than Zelda, I would have been shocked.
Right.
But I
Yeah.
do. I'm right there with you.
Whoa.
And so I think that there's going to be some very interesting discussions, because at the end of the day, they both kind of are open world sandbox games with very different types of sandboxes. And so I think you can get into some really interesting discussions. And I think all of you guys at MinMax have some interesting opinions on that. But Jeffem has said some interesting things on his Starfield streams recently about both Baldur's Gate and Zelda. So
Ooh,
I think there might be a little bit more Baldur's Gate love than maybe you think, and
Interesting.
I think maybe Leo is very good at summarizing mechanics, and I have a feeling that he might be able to put a finger on the scale either way. I think Leo might be the sway
Leo
vote,
might be the
personally.
key. Yes, Leo. We have to sway Leo, Sarah, and I.
Yeah, leave me alone. Go after Leo, please. That's interesting, Starkiller. Yeah, we should also mention, because we're talking about Alan Wake, that the poll is over, everybody, for the deepest dive. This was between Alan Wake 2, Marvel Spider-Man 2, and Super Mario Bros. Wonder. We had a total of 1,197 votes, which is incredible.
Crazy.
And in third place, we have Super Mario Bros. Wonder at 206 votes, Spider-Man 2 at 320 votes, and then Alan Wake 2 at 671 votes.
Let's go.
That is so wild to see, because we were concerned, we said it a fair bit, but that idea of like, I think Alan Wake 2 would be the most interesting, but I don't think it stands a shot.
Yeah,
toppling.
you really thought Spider-Man was going to win that.
Yeah, I really did. And I wonder how much that last podcast conversation about Alan Wake 2 tipped the scales a little bit, even if we weren't trying to fully reveal our cards. Because I honestly think all three would have been awesome.
Yeah, they would have
and
been
fun in their own way. But I did not expect it to, more than double the votes for Spider-Man 2. So thanks everybody who voted, who helped spread the word. Everybody who voted for Spider-Man 2 and Mario Brothers Wonder. We respect you. We love you dearly. That's a weird thing to say. We respect you as people, I guess we should phrase it as. Because even though it was a blowout, like over 200 people still voted and wanted a Mario Brothers Wonder over anything else. Like that's a lot of people. And so we'll definitely be talking about those games on the main show. But for the deepest dive, we'll be doing Alan Wake 2. I have no idea.
That's important to remember. Those games aren't going to not get talked about.
Right,
they're just not.
right.
They're just not going to get the deepest dive.
And yeah, so that'll be, let's see, it comes out October 27th. I don't know anything. I would imagine it'll be a 3-episode deal, rolling throughout November then. That seems to make sense to me, but I don't have a sense of how long the game is or anything at this point. So maybe I could be surprised. But thanks everybody for voting for that. That was a very big gamble to see what our lives are going to be consumed by. But based on like, we were around a little bit during the Monday meetings and stuff just to see like, hey, who would be up for all these deepest dives if they win? And it was interesting that like the Alan Wake slots filled up fast, and then Spider-Man 2 and Wonder is kind of, we would have had to pull some outside guests. We would have been not pulling teeth, but it would have been a little bit more of an effort. So it's interesting to see how much we're all aligned. So that's cool. Star Killer, anything else you wanted to talk about on this very show?
No, I was just excited about. I think the game of the year I always love the game of the year discussions, and I think it's just going to be really fun this year because, like you guys are saying, there's a lot of good games this year, especially.
Yeah, there's a lot. Star Killer, real quick. Ahsoka, the finale. Yay, nay?
Yeah, it was fine.
It was fine. Yeah, I'm kind of in that camp. Yeah.
I think you had talked about it maybe on another party chat that I wasn't on, but I think I'm in the same boat as you. That I think even I really like Rebels. I think I've said that before. But I think Ahsoka's doing some interesting stuff that they may not necessarily be justifying. But it was fine.
They may not be justifying?
Yeah. Like, it's kind of spoilery stuff, so I don't
Okay.
really want to get into it. But, like,
Sure.
I'm not really a fan of some of the things that they decided to do with some of the characters, and the overall plot was did not need to be 8 episodes is
Sure.
the short answer. I think they could have done that plot in like 2 or 3 episodes and then had 6 more to do whatever they wanted.
Right. They're definitely building up a lot for the future, which is like, okay, sure. I guess it's a TV show. You got to get ready for season 2. But yeah, not as climactic maybe as I was hoping for. And yeah, I mean, after all that, I'm not trying to be too negative on it. There was some stuff I really liked. There was
Same.
one episode like where they go to the new planet, Star Killer. I was like, this episode is cool. Yep. I like just seeing cool new sci-fi ideas in Star Wars. There's tons of little details where it's like, oh, that's really interesting. Oh, that's really interesting. Overall, you put a blaster to my head. I don't think I could tell you anything interesting about the character of Ahsoka, let alone her name. Which seems like a problem. Like I get glimpses from the Clone Wars I've watched. I get glimpses from the Rebel stuff I've watched, which isn't all of it. But like from this show itself, I know she likes to do cool Jedi moves, even though she's not a Jedi, and then pose in cool ways, and then do a little smirk and do something cocky. That's all I've really got.
Yeah, that's the thing that like that's one of my big kind of nitpicks with the show is like I feel like I mean I've seen Rebels and I'm trying to I don't think there's any other like big Ahsoka stuff between like story like canon wise between the end of Rebels and then for her own show. And so I'm like, besides your little things of Mandalorian, but I'm trying to figure out how we got to this version of Ahsoka because it's kind of odd to me that she is this stoic Jedi type character when that wasn't ever really her character before. Okay. And I feel like there's some missing information there. I'm like, did I miss something, or are they just not explaining this well, or that's where my confusion lies.
You know where my confusion lies, and we'll get to other questions here. I see your hands, and I respect your hands, just like I respect everybody who voted for Mario Wonder. I could not wrap my mind around Mon Mothma's age.
Yes,
because she looks exactly like she does in Andor, but I was thinking about it, like, wait, but Mon Mothma. Probably Obi-Wan's age, right? Based on when we see her in the prequels, she can't be too far off. If anything, older than Obi-Wan, right?
Well, okay, yes, I'm totally with you. The Star Wars is especially new Star Wars because they want to keep bringing back all these actors and because of they did the prequels last and timeline and actors and blah blah blah. They're a little loose on the ages. Like in the canon, Bo-Katan is like 10-ish years, I think, something like that, older than Boba Fett, and Tamara
Okay.
Morrison is not younger than what's her face. So
It's just the women age really well in Star Wars. Like I get wanting to keep the same actors, but like
yeah,
you couldn't put some wrinkles on Mon Mothma. She has to look like an angel. Like she looks like she's 25 years old and she should be
Yeah.
like 75.
I can't help but wonder if maybe that they maybe on purpose might have toned that down because of Andor. They want to make it very clear that like, hey, this is the same person. Like,
Right,
not that
right.
people wouldn't pick that up, but
No, I
like,
think you're right.
make it a little bit more obvious.
Yep, I think you're right. Okay, Star Killer, thank you for your support. Greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely.
We got a text question before I forget about it on the Patreon page. And by the way, if you're listening to this and you say, who are these people? How are they calling in? What is this? With Party Chat, if you're at the MinMax Council tier, you can call in or leave a text question each and every week that we're legally obligated to answer. So if you want to jump in and podcast with us, join the MinMax Council tier, even just for 1 month. We'd love to have you. And you can submit any question if you don't want to call in, like Bucket of Jello here. And this is something, Haley, that we're legally obligated to answer. Are you ready?
Yeah, I was gonna say interesting choice of language that you put that obligation on yourself.
Yep. Okay, here we go. Bucket of Jello. Oh, I guess for a lawyer. Yeah, that's interesting. Bucket of Jello says, I got sucked into Monster Hunter now. Help. That's a great question, Bucket of Jello.
Are they okay?
I don't think so. I think they're lost. We need to close their eyelids on Bucket of Jello. That's interesting. We're planning on talking about Monster Hunter now on the podcast this week because I think Kelsey Lewin's also been playing it. Is it literally Niantic that is developing this?
Oh, really?
I want to say, yeah, it is. So this is the Pokemon Go team who's had so many layoffs recently. I have not even looked at this. I've heard that it's more of a game than Pokemon Go, but I feel like I've heard that about every ARG app for a long time, and so I'm curious to hear where it lands in that spectrum. But that's for Kelsey Lewin to unpack on the podcast this week. Okay, let's get to questions. Screamin' comes first. We'll try and go in order in which they were received. Hello, Screamin' Steveolution.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey,
I guess
really
first
well.
I just want to say thank you to everybody for making the right choice in the Patreon vote.
Yep, they all owe you. Got it.
I was wondering, like, where does a game like Cyberpunk come into discussions on the 210s?
Yep.
Like a game that didn't come out this year, but has changed so much, and then you have this huge expansion. Like, I've been playing it recently, and it's the only thing I'm thinking about playing,
Really?
despite the log of games to get through.
Oh boy. Yeah, it's a great question. There is a lot that we could go into, but yeah, I haven't started Phantom Liberty. I don't know if I honestly will. I enjoyed Cyberpunk 2077, but I'm like, I don't know if I need to go back and experience more of that. But then again, I read and hear people talk about it, and the way they're talking about it makes it seem like just a whole new game in terms of quality. All right, Pumpkin wants to talk about this. I believe, and I need to go back and re-listen to last year, because I think it was last year for the 210s where we were talking about zero build mode in Fortnite. And I think the conclusion was that it's fair game for the 210s. Anything's fair game for your personal top 10s, but it's fair game for the 210s if there is an addition or expansion on the game that fundamentally changes the game. I think
That feels fair.
Right. I think that was the wording we used. And so it seems like a big expansion like Phantom Liberty would be an inclusion there, because Fortnite, because I think if I remember correctly, the debate was like with Fortnite on the 210s last year, it's like, well, we could just put it on every year then, and that's so boring. And it's like, well, if we're playing it every year and having a blast with it, why wouldn't it go on the list? And so it's like it needs that aspect where in this year it's fundamentally changed, and I think Phantom Liberty would put it there. That said, I think Kyle's the only person who's sunk a lot of time into it and actually beat Phantom Liberty, and I could be wrong. Kyle doesn't strike me as the type of guy that's going to go to the mat for Phantom Liberty. I could see him being like, it's an expansion, don't worry about it. And so I don't know. It all just depends on Kyle's passion, I guess.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, what do you think? Is there a better system there?
I guess it was more just kind of anybody's opinion who'd played it. Like, I beat the game on an early build, and then it got a big update, and I went back for a couple of hours, and I said to myself I would only play Phantom Liberty. and I played about 30 minutes. I was like, I kind of need to go back to the start.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just like, it feels like a totally new game. They've rebuilt, like, the currency system's totally different. The new cyberware system's different. Like, guns actually feel enjoyable. Like, it's a fun game to play for the first time.
That's interesting. Pumpkin number 6, you also played it?
Yeah, absolutely. Wasn't gonna be my initial topic to talk about, but then
Sure.
when Evolution brought it up, I was like, absolutely. Because I was making my top 10 list today, and Cyberpunk right now is like second.
Whoa.
I love the first one. I didn't have too many bugs. I saw the issues, but also saw the potential, and kind of dabble with it like every 8 months. And this is like the best it's ever been. It's like Steve Lucian said, it's like a different game.
So the
And
gunplay
the
specifically.
story's cool. It's great. It's like a spy thriller. It's a change of pace, but it's awesome.
Yeah, and the gunplay. Do you think somebody who's not very sensitive to like first-person shooter gunplay and picking up on the minutia, you think even if I went back to it, it would stand out in a big way for me?
I would almost argue it just like functions.
Okay.
Like when the first
Yeah.
when the game came out, I wanted to play like assault rifles and stuff. Pretty much had to do like a sword build because it's the only thing that like felt responsive and like the game
wow.
actually
Yeah.
functions. And now it's like I'm doing just smart guns on this run, so you don't even have to aim, Ben. It's awesome.
Okay,
You just get them on
okay.
your screen and hold the trigger button. But even like they've changed perks so that perks interact with each other now, so you actually feel like you're making a build. And yeah, it's just been great.
That's awesome. What's your number 1, by the way? Pumpkin number 6.
Well, I think it's going to be what throws the Leo conversation off, and why I wanted to bring up if expansions count, because
Sure.
Hitman Freelancer is my number 1 right now.
Oh.
Good.
And that was
Oh,
January like
no.
20 something.
Yeah.
Late January. So it's technically 2023, and I think Leo's going to go to the mat on it. So it's
You're right. Oh my God.
I
That-
didn't
he's
even
gonna
think about
he's
how
gonna
that
say
could be
Legend of
counted.
Who, Baldur's What. It's like
yeah.
so it's my current number 1. But Spider-Man 2 hasn't come out yet. I'm anticipating that being the rest of my year, but
Sure.
yeah. So I kind of wanted to just touch base on that same question of, I know you always say personal lists are whatever,
Yeah.
but just when it comes to when you guys start really nailing it down, how hard like Leo could throw into Hitman, or if someone really clicks with Phantom
Yeah.
Liberty, how hard they can bring those
I think-
discussions.
I think they can get him on the list in a big way. I could see Hitman Freelancer. I could see that being in the upper 10s even. This is
Yeah, it's
That makes me
phenomenal.
want to go replay some freelancer stuff.
yeah. Oh, you're a big Hitman
Yeah.
person, Haley?
Oh, I love Hitman.
Oh,
I
shit.
platinumed
Oh,
the
okay.
well, I don't think Hitman the first, like the newer ones, the
Yes.
Hitman trilogy.
Yep.
But I platinumed the ones that had platinums and gotten all the trophies. I love it.
Oh God. Okay.
So
Great.
that could be up there for me too.
I'm happy
I'm really
it is.
happy I
but-
stirred this pot.
Yeah, now I realize like this is gonna be tight. Getting 20 games, like this is gonna be rough. There are gonna be some real darlings that get slaughtered along the way. Oh God. I'm already dreading Kelsey's Octopath Traveler 2. That feels like one of those that's gonna be on the bubble. I remembered, and I haven't brought it up, but I shook Janet's hand on the podcast and said that we were both going to beat Bayonetta Origins this year. And now I still want to beat it, but I do wonder, like, even if we beat it and like it, I feel like that's a great territory for number 23 on the list or something, you know? Like, I think it's going to take a lot to push something onto the list at this point, because this is getting tight. Oh, it's fun. And the beauty, and this is, I guess, kind of the fun thing of us being 4 years old now, which, by the way, community meetup in Seattle. If you're listening to this and you're in Seattle, please come to the community meetup Sunday, October 22nd. Kelsey, Lewin, and I will be at Petoskey's, which is a Minnesota-themed bar / restaurant in Seattle. So Sunday, October 22nd, 7 p.m. Come by, say hi, please. But anyways, it's the beauty of being an outlet that's 4 years old, I guess now, is it does feel like every year there's just more and more weight on the 210s and the game of the year debate, which I think is kind of fun, because don't tell anybody, but like, it's just a list. Like, you know, it's not a big deal. It's not like we're handing out bonuses to the devs for their work on this or anything. But like the fact that we're talking about the 210s throughout the entire year, it makes it so much more fun to finally get to that event. And just, I feel like tension will be palpable once we are recording that episode, so it should be a blast.
I've seen comments on YouTube videos like in February of people being like, "Can't wait for this to come up on the 210s."
Which, yeah, I think is good. The only way it's not good is if we record it and then it just infuriates people. Because I don't think last year was that bad, but a couple years in the past, it's been like people are so salty, and not on the team. There's a little salt on the team, but like, you know, in the comments, it just feels like the overwhelming reaction sometimes to those big game of the year debates is people being like, you people are morons, this sucks, how dare you? And it's like, what are we even doing this for? Like, we're just trying to recommend good games, everybody. Everyone needs to relax. And so hopefully that added pressure of people really looking forward to it throughout the year, that doesn't also add to the pressure of people turning toxic when the list isn't exactly as they would want it, you know? But hopefully we'll be all right. Let's see. Let's get some more folks up here. But Screamage Evolution, anything else you wanted to cover before we move on?
No, all good. Actually, just want to say the Atari interview.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, you can soup that fast. That was just went up today. Yeah, I didn't really mention it too much, but it was kind of fun. We had the CEO of Atari, Wade Rosen. He came in for an interview, and he came into the MinMax studio, and we had a nice chat last week because it turns out he lives in Minneapolis, and he lives like shockingly close to me. It's one of those weird deals. And so it came up because my wife was in like a new mom group, and she was talking with just one of the moms about, I don't know, like what their spouses did or something. And so video games came up, and then this lady in the new mom group's like, oh, that's funny, my brother's the CEO of Atari. And then my wife told me that, and I was like, oh, wait, that Wade guy? I saw him in Atari 50. That's bizarre. And then, yeah, turns out he lives right around here. So yeah, that was an interesting conversation. Like, we don't really get to talk to CEOs that much. And so maybe it was too much of me trying to dig into the weeds of running a company. And it's weird, Haley. I don't know if it's like just a sign of where we are in the game industry, but like, I get stressed when I am talking to the head of a company that is not making gazillions of dollars just because there's been so many layoffs. And so it's a weird feeling to be like rooting for like, hey, your company's sustainable, right? Like, you guys are in the black, you're doing all right. And it was interesting that like, I asked him about that, and he's like, well, our numbers are public. Like, we are not a profitable company at the moment, you know? And so just kind of unpacking all that stuff about what it takes to run a modern company like Atari is fascinating to me. So hopefully y'all enjoy it. I know it's interesting. There was one comment on Patreon where somebody said like, hey, CEO of Atari, that's an amazing get. It's like, oh yeah, I guess it's cool that we got a CEO in the studio. I do think that's really cool. But then again, it's like Atari isn't exactly in anybody's top 5 for current game publishers, you know? So hopefully people enjoy that kind of a deep dive into a unique perspective than we normally hear. If you're more interested in the business side of things, hopefully enjoy that interview. Let's see.
I like you put the logo of Atari behind him. That was a nice touch.
I drew it on the blackboard, yeah, and it wasn't the prettiest thing, but I don't think you're too offended. Let's see, pumpkin number 6. Anything else you want to cover?
No, yeah, I was looking at my list and want to make sure that we're all on the same page, kind of where those DLC big additions and drop Hitman and leave, just stir the pot and leave was kind of the plan here.
Yeah, it's smart. Screamage Evolution, if you don't mind, where are you from? People are trying to dissect your accent.
Oh yeah, so I'm from Belfast in Ireland, which I've been told by like a few friends from overseas is quite a difficult accent.
No,
because we tend to talk quite fast. Like, I'm consciously trying to slow it down, so I don't know how well that comes across.
I should try to do that more on the podcast. Hello, Beaten Down Brian.
Well, how's it going?
Really good. Now, is this the same accent? This is what I'm trying to figure out.
I don't think so. Ireland for me.
Okay, wait. So, okay, Steve, listen, where are you from again?
Belfast. So I'm in the north of Ireland.
North of Ireland.
Yeah, and I'm in the south.
The south of Ireland. Okay, so, and just to generalize in the worst possible way, your accents represent that in a way that if we really pay attention to how you two are speaking right now, we'd be able to pick up on that?
Yeah, like, I think either one of us could hear the other and, like, automatically get an idea of where, like, top or bottom, where they're from.
That's fascinating.
I don't know how true that is for mine, because mine is a kind of a very neutral accent, I think. but
Oh,
I can totally hear a difference.
There
I
is.
can totally hear a difference.
Yep.
between the
These
two of
are
them.
different people. There's no doubt about it. Okay, Beaten Down Brian, what would you like to talk about? Thanks for joining us on a party chat, the rare party chat appearance.
yeah, I actually called in to talk about Forza Motorsport.
Ooh, all right, yeah.
Um, I've been playing it there since last week, and I've put maybe about 20 hours into it at this point, and it's just been a very mixed bag so far.
Really?
Yeah, it's like there's some great improvements, but there's also just some kind of mind-boggling decisions.
Well, I appreciate this perspective because, yeah, as a layman idiot when it comes to this, it's like, oh, it's a pretty racing game and I'm having a solid time with it, but I'm not, opening the hood like you are as a super fan.
Yeah, well, what I'll say is to start with some positives on it. Like,
Sure.
it absolutely feels great on a wheel. It's probably actually the best Forza has ever felt on a wheel.
Oh, great.
There was always a problem in Forza where you would never get the level of force feedback you would want, and the steering was always very inconsistent, especially at like high speeds and stuff. And that seems to have been ironed out completely now. The steering is responsive, it's consistent, and there's a good level of feedback to where you can really tell what the car is doing underneath you.
Yeah.
But then there's other additions, like the weather has been a really great addition. You have situations now where you'll be starting on like a dry track and it'll start to rain mid-race, and you can feel the grip. You can feel your grip deteriorating underneath you. You'll also start races in like a low sunlight setting, and as the race progresses, you might see a fog come down or something like that. And like those additions have been absolutely great.
Yeah.
There's things like they've improved their tire physics pretty dramatically, I would say. The way it always used to work in Forza was you would have, say, one point of contact that the tire would read, basically, and that would control how the suspension reacts when you're going through corners. And one problem with Forza was that as the rear of a car would be hitting a curb, it would tend to always pitch the car. And now with the new 8 points of contact, it makes that basically much smoother when it's going over a rougher curb. So the suspension is absorbing it much better than it used to.
Okay.
And, the car is performing as you would expect it to. Whereas before now, it could be very inconsistent, especially on high-speed corners. And it was a big complaint, like especially among like the multiplayer community and such. But multiplayer is also great as well.
Okay.
They took the system basically from Gran Turismo, where you're starting now on scheduled races. So if you jump in, say the scheduled race is 8 o'clock or whatever, you will have then, if you jump in at 10 to 8, you'll have 10 minutes to practice or whatever, and then you can jump into the races. But having the safety rankings is a big thing that's came over from GT as well. And that's so far really helped in terms of how multiplayer has went.
Yeah.
You're not getting so much bumper cars at the start of a race and stuff.
I see.
But that said, we're still in the early access period, so tomorrow will be the real test of it, I guess. So we'll kind of have to wait and to see how that goes.
I'm interested when you say that they're taking so much stuff from Gran Turismo. Is it just from Gran Turismo 7, or is this like series staples for Gran Turismo that they're finally adapting?
If basically from GT Sport and from GT7.
Okay.
The way that the races work is that there's scheduled races for multiplayer, and those will stay for maybe like a week at a time. There'll be maybe 5 or 6 different categories of races with like different car classes. Some you might have to be able to use any car, some you might have to use a specific car, things like that. It's basically GT actually copied it from iRacing, but it's a good system, and like it sort of weeds out people who are just coming in maybe more casually or just to play bumper cars or whatever, because if you go in, you start doing that, you're going to get matched with people who are also doing the same.
Okay.
So if you get a clean rating, you can work your way up to like an S rating. And if you get into an S rating, you'll be grouped with other people who are also on an S rating, which means you're generally speaking, you're getting a much higher quality of multiplayer race.
Yeah, I mean, your level of knowledge about this genre, do you enjoy the Forza Horizon games, or are those just like popcorn nonsense to you, and you're just interested in diving into the weeds here?
I do and I don't. I've been playing Sims since like PS1, and like I've been involved in motorsport from a young age, so I've always just tended to go towards the simulation side of things,
Sure.
I suppose.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
I do at times play like Horizon and that, but it's just not one I'd stick with as much. I'd put it that way. Like,
Right. So the big effort from Microsoft here to kind of reboot Forza, the main line, with this entry, you're not over the moon about it.
I'm not, because it comes down to a couple of things. The first is just it's not a big one, but like it's something you don't expect from a Forza title. It's very buggy, and like this is actually a little PSA for everyone that's going to be starting the game tomorrow. When you initially boot up that game, you'll be asked to choose between 3 visual settings. You have your performance mode, you have a variable resolution with ray tracing, and the other mode is like a 30 FPS mode, which I don't know why you would even have that. But anyway, just by selecting one of those, it is going to cause a problem with the gamma settings on the game. And the only way to fix that is to quit the game fully and then restart it from the menu.
Oh.
And if you change that at any time, it will do the same thing again.
Really?
Yeah, because initially what happened was when it came out in early access, everyone was like, this looks awful. And you might have seen it. IGN actually put up a comparison video between
Yes.
Forza and GT7.
Yeah, I did see that.
and
Yeah.
Yeah, Dustin actually had to go and take it down and redo it because of that setting. That was basically what happened, because every time he was shutting off his Xbox, Quick Resume was bringing it back in, and the fault would still remain.
Oh, that's diabolical. Okay, so buggy, people should be aware of that.
Yeah, it's there's other things as well. Like, they're not huge. It's a lot of problems with like reflections, shadows, replays. Replays are really weird in that, like, one corner you're looking at, like, you know, almost photorealistic graphics, and next thing it goes around to another angle, and the trees in the background look like they're out of a PS1 game.
Right, right.
You know, it's a lot of small stuff. My big complaints, however, are the AI in the single player it's one of the most confounding AIs I've ever seen in a racing game.
Oh man, okay.
So they made a whole big video about how much they had improved their AI, right?
Yeah.
They made a comparison video and showed it around the Nordschleife ring, the Nürburgring
Yep.
in Luxembourg.
Sure.
And basically they were showing that the new AI in a top tier car could basically lap that circuit about 18 seconds quicker than it used to be able to do, which is obviously a huge margin.
Yeah.
But when you actually get into the game, the top 2 or 3 cars, you could maybe say the top 4 cars, the AI in them is very, very good. You can have some really close racing. They will defend positions. They will attack you if they're going faster than you. But when you get down to like the midfield, something really weird happens, because it just becomes a clown show. If you just try to pass a car left or right, and like you could have almost a half a car's width between you, they'll just sideswipe you.
Huh.
It honestly reminds me of being in some of the worst multiplayer lobbies.
That seems like a problem.
It's really odd. Like, I just, you know, if you're playing a game like Formula One, say, if you were trying to pass the guy in last place, it would be as hard as it would be, the same. It would be as difficult as trying to pass the guy in first place, because like the AI is working the same throughout the grid. But in Forza, the back half of the grid just kind of feels like traffic, and they just feel incredibly dumb. If you start at the back of a race, you will just see a pile up the first corner every single time.
Yeesh. So at this point, Gran Turismo 7 is by far and away a better experience for you?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say that, because like, the AI and stuff has only got to do with single player, and like the AI in Gran Turismo is just almost not present. It's so bad. Like it literally is. There's no racing at all in the Gran Turismo single player campaign. You literally start like a kilometer behind some other cars, and you're just in a faster car, and you just basically pass them. There's no actual racing basically happening in that entire campaign. So like, at least Forza is giving you a good, I would say, simplistic and probably old school style campaign.
Sure.
But it's fun to go through.
Okay.
The one big problem is this car XP system. This, I think, I've seen people everywhere complaining about it at the moment, just because what it does is it completely removes any and all freedom from tuning. When in the old games, you would have to grind for credits to get new cars. But at least when you got the car, you could then tune it however you wanted and take that car then into multiplayer.
Right.
But now, because every time you get a new car, they force you into having to build up XP for that car to unlock the parts. That basically means that if you want to take, say you buy a Honda Civic or whatever, and you want to tune it up to be a B-class category car, you would basically have to grind for about 3 hours to unlock the parts to be able to tune it properly for multiplayer. And that's like a big issue, because you have to do that for every single car that you want to bring into multiplayer.
Okay.
Now, they do have stock races in multiplayer, which means that you don't need to have a tuned car going in. And there is also the option to rent cars in multiplayer, which means you can pick basically any car and bring that in. The problem is, when you rent cars, you don't get any XP for that car. So even if you jump in and you do 10 races and you get enough credits to go buy that car, you have to go and grind it out with that car from the start to then be able to bring it into multiplayer again. It's such a confusing system, or why they chose to implement it in this manner. It just leaves me really scratching my head, like, because the games were always grindy before, but this is it forces a grind that's just not fun, because the whole problem is that when you have to start off racing with a stock car, the stock cars are not fun to drive in the first place.
Yeah.
They're only fun to drive after you actually tune them and make them feel good.
Right.
So that's the big catch up really with it. So it's like I said, it's a very mixed bag altogether. For me so far, at least. I'm going to stick with it for another while, but I can't see myself sticking with it long term, especially for multiplayer, unless something is done with that XP system, because it's bad enough in Gran Turismo. You're trying to grind out like 10 million credits to get a car, but like here it's nearly worse, because it's the time requirement.
Yep. Well, B Number, I thank you for being an expert in all these areas that I can't be. I'm sure it's infuriating to listen to me on the podcast and be like, it's good. That's fun. I had a good time with it. Moving on.
Not at all. Look, I get that it's, these games are not everyone's thing. So like, I didn't want to even take up too much time talking about it here. Like, but
sure.
Yeah.
No, it's definitely tough. I feel guilty on the main podcast talking about it. And maybe Janet feels that way talking about like FIFA and something, but she feels like more excited, I think, to talk about than I do for racing games. It's like, I like a simple pleasure. But
Yeah,
hey,
yeah.
but hey, no, Brian. What should we do with the future of MinMax? What type of content do you want to see more of?
Oh, God, I don't know. You're catching me on the hop.
I know.
Uh,
Sorry.
I tell you what I'd selfishly love to see would be you, Ronnie, and Grant continue your playthrough of the original FF7 before Rebirth comes out.
Yeah.
And I know that's a big and it's a selfish ask, but I would love to see it.
That's interesting. Yeah, no promises, but we have talked about it. I do think it'd be fun to play all of the first disc of Final Fantasy VII because we left off leaving Midgar. I remember the characters were all named really stupid things, but it would be a nice way to kind of refresh our memory before jumping in, especially like with that new version of Final Fantasy VII with the kind of newer ports where you can fly through all the combat and run everything 3 times speed. Like, I think we could do it. We could do it like in a night if we just marathon it. And I do think it'd be really fun. So no promises, but I agree that would be fun. Is that a fair thing to convey?
Yeah, for sure, sure. And just before I go, because I don't think I've even got to say hello to Haley, but just to say that Haley has been a great addition to MinMax, and I've been a big fan of her on the podcast and stuff as well. So,
Oh, thank you. That's so sweet.
no problem.
There we go. All right. Thanks for
I'm
being on, Brian.
fascinated by your knowledge. The chat also is like, oh my gosh, this is amazing how much you know about these games.
Yeah, well, I'll put it this way: EA Sports WRC is my most anticipated game coming out this year.
Whoa, okay.
Like I would burn Spider-Man 2 and Alan Wake 2 for that game.
All right. Well, that's just outrageous. All right. You got to go. Thanks for being down, Brian. Appreciate the support.
Thanks, bye.
All right, bye.
See ya.
Let's get Groffles up here. We got time for a couple more questions. Oh, now people are throwing their hands in the air. Let's see if Groffles will jump up. Something I'd love to talk about too, and we can probably bug y'all in the Discord about it too, but we have our big charity stream coming up, not Extra Life, Give to the Max, but happening on the Extra Life Day, happening on November 4th, Saturday, November 4th. And so we need to start planning out what the content is. We have a ton of charity auctions ready to go. We have a crew ready to rotate through, but we only have scattered ideas at the moment for what games we're going to be playing for Extra Life. So if you're hearing this, feel free to toss suggestions our way on Twitter or in the Discord for what games we're playing during the big charity stream. But hello, Groffles. What would you like to talk about?
Oh, hello. Yeah. I don't know. There's been a lot of stuff going on. So I was just going to talk about a few things if you got time. But
sure.
You mentioned randomly Monster Hunter Now.
Yeah.
And I know that you're not a big Monster Hunter fan. You said Kelsey, she has at least been playing it. And I thought that she might even have played Monster Hunter in the past. How many other people, since, some of the main Monster Hunter people aren't around anymore, how many people are actually playing Monster Hunter games?
Like in the MinMax crew?
Yeah.
It's a good question. I think Sarah's dabbled. I think Janet's dabbled. Yeah, I finished World.
I only played World.
Okay. Like in terms of, I think Kelsey's the only one who's like up to date and playing Daybreak and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, like Daybreak. I didn't even get Daybreak, but I played, at least 150 hours of Rise. I need to eventually get the expansion, but
yeah.
And so because of that, I'm curious at who would be the resident expert to be even talking about Monster Hunter Now and the differences between that and then the console games.
Yeah, that's Kelsey. We'll put it all on her shoulders. But it is funny you mentioned that I am wearing my House Hunter Rise T-shirt,
nice
sweatshirt designed by Hugo over there. So it is funny that we have that show named after Monster Hunter Rise, a game that I don't think any of us really played other than Kelsey.
No, I don't remember any of the people that were actually on there were members of the Monster Hunter community, really. But
I don't think so.
It was a good run. It was definitely a good run.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I'll look forward to hearing more from her about that because I've been playing it too. It's just one of those games that it's hard to find time now that I had my my second daughter recently. So.
Oh, congratulations!
Yeah.
Thank you.
Big surprises so far with the second kid?
No, I mean, like, nothing's a surprise if you've already, gone the first time around. It's just more, planning and time management than anything before. My wife is on maternity leave right now, so she's able to do as much as possible. I'm kind of helping after I'm done with work, and then outside of that, we have like our daycare system still set up.
Okay.
So I mean, the big thing is just like you've gone through all the initial stuff once. They are each their own, so you just have to adjust and then try to still make time, because my oldest, she is 17 months, and my youngest now being almost a month. So there's not too much of a difference between them, but like baby is starting to take attention from bigger sister, and big sister is starting to notice that more and more.
Oh no. All right. Well, Godspeed, Groffles. That sounds like a challenge, but we believe in you.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, Groffles.
Bye.
All right. Skeleon, jump on up. Hello, Skeleon. What's happening?
Hello.
Hello. What would you like to talk about?
Oh, there are a couple things. I guess a couple options here. We got TCGs and live shows. Any preference for sake of time?
Live shows?
Yeah. Okay. So this past weekend, I saw Game Grumps live.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I actually had seen them before back in 2019, and they are really fantastic entertainers live because they do improv so well. In that first show that I saw back in 2019, I think the name of the tour was like The Final Party, because it was all Mario Party themed.
Oh,
so,
of course.
Yeah. So what it seems like they do for all of their tours is they split the audience in half. The left side is for Aaron, the right side is for Dan. So like Team Grump and Team Not So Grump. And then you get each side of the audience cheering for, one of the people as they compete and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's genius. So in that Mario Party show, they had some people come up and play Mario Party, mini games, but mostly it was Aaron and Dan playing them and doing commentary. But for this one, it was just called Tournament of Champions, and they had their own games that they developed.
What?
Using using 3 big buttons on stage, and they called a bunch of people up on stage to play those games representing Dan and Aaron. So it was kind of like genius and so much fun, especially because everybody there is like really it feels like most of the Game Grumps fan base, at least people who care enough to go to a live show, are pretty wholesome people.
Okay.
Like the diversity of the amount of people there was, staggering. There's just so many chill people there. And it was just a really great live show. A lot of screaming though, because you had to scream for one side. They had like scream meters and things like that. So
I think that's really smart because it's like, I feel like we made the mistake in the past at Game Informer of like, okay, people seem to like replay that game or that show where we play just old games. Like, let's just do that live on a stage. And I wanted to peel my skin off. I was so uncomfortable. Like, it is just unbearable to be like, oh, you think we're pretty funny online? Wait till you see us in a room playing a game. And it just feels like the most boring, unfunny thing imaginable. And so it's nice to have that direct line of feedback of like, all right, we're dividing the room, just like invest people a little bit, and then having that extra angle of bringing up on stage and they get to press buttons and stuff. Like, that seems like a very smart solution compared to just doing a tour of a Let's Play.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's cool.
I would love to see Game Grumps live. I listen to Game Grumps like every day.
Every day?
Yeah,
I fall asleep to it every single night.
Whoa. And it's just, I know nothing about Game Grumps.
They're very good because they're just chatting, right? So it's very easy to just fall asleep to them because all they're doing is just like they're just friends who chat on a couch, but there's also gameplay in the background, so you got 2 things going on. I mean, that's every Let's Play,
right?
But you can tell that like they're also improv comedians, and they've been improv comedian friends for what, like a decade now. Skeleton, like they've been doing it so long that they
like
just
15
know
years.
Yeah, they know each other's beats and stuff, and they feed off each other very well.
They've been doing Game Grumps for just over 10 years. So Game Grumps started in 2012, but that was with John Tron. And then after the first year, John left and Dan Avidan joined the show. So Dan's been on the show for 10 years. And I think they've been friends for longer. So, and Aaron, for those who don't know, Aaron Hansen is Ego Raptor, who was an old Newgrounds animator. who did a lot of stuff like the Awesome series and things like that before Game Grumps. So that was like mid, 2000s, whenever Newgrounds was big.
Sure.
And then Dan Avidan is from Ninja Sex Party, which is the comedy music group.
Okay.
So they're both, really stellar comedians and just improv so well together. They have such a rapport. It's great.
Oh, that's sweet. That's cool. Well, thanks for the report there, Skillian. Appreciate it.
Yeah. But yeah, highly recommend just checking out Game Grumps, I guess, if you can. But
If you're
yeah, big
capable.
plug for Game Grumps. But I mean, they're just a really great, wholesome, crass humor. And they don't have-
Wholesome, crass humor.
Yeah, they're like, like they make dick jokes and poop jokes and stuff, but like
but wholesome dick
they're
jokes.
yeah, exactly.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, hey, thanks, Gillian. Appreciate it.
All right.
All right.
Thanks.
Hello, B Wood. Welcome to the show, B Wood.
Hey Ben. Hey Haley. How's it going?
Good.
Good, how are you?
What would you like to talk about?
Let's see. So try to make it quick. First, Foam Stars. I haven't really heard a lot of people talk about it. I feel like it's kind of hushed tones, kind of talk about like, oh, this game might be kind of good.
You get your butt kicked if you defend Foam Stars too much. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But I was checking out the beta. I think that's what it was like a week ago now. I think it was not this past weekend, but the one before that.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And yeah, I actually liked it, and I remember seeing it on TGS, just kind of like scrolling through, or fast forwarding through things. And I was like, I don't know, I don't think this is going to be any good, but like surprisingly, I actually like it. And my daughter saw me playing it, and she like asked me to play it again. I'm like, I'm sorry, sweetie, the beta's over with. I can't play it anymore.
Oh no.
Yeah. And so it's one of those games where it's like, man, I'm surprisingly looking forward to it. I hope, or at least another beta to see the other game modes they had, because it actually was pretty cool. I actually did enjoy it. So
it's gonna be
here's some more Foam Stars.
Here's more Foam Stars. And what did you say? 2024 for release date?
They have not given a date. I think they said 2024, but they haven't given a date.
Okay.
The one bad thing I'll say about it, since you brought that up, because I'm trying to remember. I think the only reason I think 2024 is because on the PlayStation's game page, it says 2024, and I remember that it also says that, excuse me, that it's you need PlayStation Plus to play the game.
Oh no! And they raised the prices on that. Ugh.
Right, but the confusing thing about that is that it's free to play for PS5 players, and the confusing thing about that is that it's coming to PS5 and PS4. So is it not free to play on PS4 and it's free to play on PS5?
Oh.
Yeah, that's pretty weird. Hopefully that gets cleared up soon. But yeah, they put that on PlayStation blog that it's free to play for PS5 players.
Oh,
and then
really?
like I said, and maybe they'll take that away. Maybe they'll say, oh, never mind, you don't need PlayStation Plus for this because it's a free to play game. But that's just something that's kind of wild and weird.
Weird, because there was so much confusion about the pricing structure for it. So we don't know if it's a free to play game. We just know free to play on PS5. That's it.
Yeah, they put that on the PS blog, and to this date, I think that was like a week ago now too. To this date, I don't think anybody said like, nope, just kidding, it's not going to be on PS5.
That's weird.
So yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
What a trip.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just rambling. Go ahead, man.
Okay. Kind of quick hard turn away from Foam Stars, talking about, of course, Final Fantasy VII.
Of course.
First of all, thank you guys for doing that Ever Crisis spoiler cast. That was pretty cool. I enjoyed that.
Oh, good. Yeah, I teased it for you. Was it last week on the show where it seemed like you wanted more Ever Crisis content? It's like, all right, well, we have this on the plans, but their schedules are kind of tough, so I never want to promise things too much because things fall through all the time with them.
Totally understand that, but I'm definitely glad you guys were able to do it. And it's just good hearing you guys talk about Final Fantasy VII in general. I think just hearing you guys talk about it, and I think Ronnie made fun of you because you said, "Hey, you guys ever heard about Ever Crisis?" And you said and they said "Hey, is it on the mobile?" And he was like, "Yes," and then they didn't reply back. You guys are just it's just good, entertaining to watch you guys, especially when I think in general, but especially when you guys talk about Final Fantasy VII.
Oh, thanks.
The other thing about Final Fantasy VII that I want to bring up that I think is crazy, and maybe you can enlighten me on it, is I have never seen a sequel come out and they offered the the previous game for the same price as if you were just going to buy the sequel. So the twin pack for the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which includes Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade.
Yeah.
That's a lot of words. That's $70. Or you can just buy the game, just Rebirth by itself for $70. And I'm thinking to myself, like, has that ever happened before? Has anybody ever pushed out a sequel to the game that came in a pack, and you could also get the previous game for the same price as if you just bought the sequel by itself?
I didn't even catch that. I feel like with a lot of pricing stuff, it's like, whatever. I don't need to pay too much attention to it if people aren't freaking out about it. But I missed that. That's a pretty wild idea.
Yeah. I can't think of another example like that, and I'm not sure if, I mean, at this point in time, like it came to PS Plus, what is now the Essential tier. It is now on PS Plus Extra on the catalog. I'm not sure if they're thinking like, hey, whatever, at this point in time, you should have been able to play it. Here it is for free. Just go ahead and grab it. And play
they've given it away 6 ways to Sunday, except for it's not on Xbox and yet. It's such a wild idea of like they have given it to every person who can conceivably be interested in the PlayStation ecosystem, but never going over to the Xbox stuff. So hopefully soon for them.
Yeah. We'll see. My thinking, and I think some other people's thinking, is that it's probably some deal to say like, hey, you have to complete the series before you can put it on any other console.
That'd be interesting.
Probably the way that it might go, but there's other people who think like, it's probably going to come sooner than that. But,
I would imagine it would come sooner than that. But I mean, that thing's coming out so fast. I mean, just a couple months, like 4 months basically, we'll be playing Rebirth. So I don't think they'll have time to build up momentum with a big port to Xbox, which you would think that they'd want to do that before they get Rebirth out the door, but maybe they know that audience just isn't going to be there. So I don't know.
It's not like it didn't, like I know people think that it didn't sell well, but it did pretty good. It sold 3.5 mil when it first released, and then I think before it got to PS Plus, it got to 7 million, I think.
Okay.
And it went to PS Plus pretty early. Like it came like I think it wasn't even a year after it was released, and it was on PS Plus. I mean, that's going to cut into your sales, and I just don't understand the thinking. On top of all that, I'm already seeing ads for Rebirth already, and it's PlayStation ads. It has the PlayStation branding on it.
Oh boy!
This is before I saw ads for Spider-Man 2, which is the game that's coming out this month. So that's
interesting.
That's all wild. It's crazy of how they're doing things. But,
yeah. Well, right on. We should probably wrap up for the day. But B-Wood, thank you for your support. Thanks for calling in with the Final Fantasy VII checkup.
Yeah, thanks for letting me call in.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks to everybody who supports us at any tier on Patreon. Greatly appreciated. Thanks to everybody, especially at the Max Council tier. You can call in podcasts with us next week about whatever you'd like, anything under the sun. Get ready for a fun week. Yeah, I hope you all enjoy that Atari interview. It's nice to be back in the groove of doing interviews. I have a couple more lined up, a couple more on the runway and stuff. So hopefully we can keep those rolling out here. Yeah, get a little bit more outside of our orbit. Hopefully other folks find and enjoy those interviews. But Haley, thank you for joining.
Yeah, I love when you do interviews.
Oh, that's
more
so
of those,
sweet.
Please.
Okay, can do. Yeah, and then look forward to, I think this episode of the podcast this week is going to be a big one, not for momentous news, but I think there's going to be a lot of us on it. So those are, it's always kind of a taste again of the 210s of having a big crew for a regular podcast. So I think it's
like
gonna be
a
fun.
little appetizer for the 210s. It feels like
That's
it's almost forming into, isn't it?
That's exactly it. All right, thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Bye.
Let's send you over to Abby Russell, formerly of Giant Bomb. She's playing Disco Elysium. What a funky game. What a funky game to be playing in
I need
2023.
to finish that game.
Yeah.
I got really far, but I just never finished it.
That's interesting. Okay. Bye, everybody on Twitch.
Bye.